Rewind. Hey guys, welcome to my bedroom again. Yeah, situation still the same around the world, and I hope everyone is keeping safe and, mentally there. Because of that, I actually decided to bring back my YouTube. I have been MIA because of my own mental issues, and also just, it's hard to be motivated when all you're doing is sitting in the house, right? So I wanted to start with my own writing tips, because that's all I can think of what to do for this channel right now. And I decided to start with something that is actually connected to my college degree. I have a bachelor's degree in English with the focus on writing. Yes, that's right. It's not creative writing. It's not fiction writing. It's just writing. And you're probably wondering, what exactly does that mean? Well, it turns out there are many different forms of writing. And this video, I'm going to touch on a few of those different types. So without further ado, let's get it on. Now, we have all heard about creative writing in the fiction and nonfiction realms. Those I'm not going to touch on. Instead, I'm going to touch on other stuff that I learned in college that actually really helps me out. So the first one I want to talk on is something that we all really know about. And even if you don't like it, you know about it. I mean, you were stuck probably reading the Odyssey at one point, because it is what? A poem. Poetry. That's right. I'm going to be talking about poetry right now. Poetry is really hard to grasp, for me at least. Like, the rules of poetry make zero sense. I get the A, B, B, but you go on to iambic pentameter or haikus, and aside from them being from William Shakespeare and Japan, I have no clue. It's amazing how people can make these happen. Even limericks are hard for me. That's a type of poem. Bet you didn't know that. Or if you did, awesome job. Anyway, poetry is difficult for me to grasp in the rules section. I'm more of like just a free thought thinker when I'm writing my own poetry. And my poetry sucks. Don't ever read my poetry. But one thing I can tell you that is great about poetry is that it helps dramatically in the description scenes. It really does. It helps you describe things better. You're trying to pull something and make something real in as much or as little words as possible. And so you have to play around with the words and find the right description, the taste, the smell, the feel. And that is what's great about poetry. It also helps with finding your own personal voice and narration. And that's why, if you're a writer or a creative writer in general, it doesn't matter if it's fiction or nonfiction, poetry is a good base to at least dabble in or have a small knowledge in. I'm not saying you gotta be, William Shakespeare or, honestly, William Shakespeare is the only poet in my head right now. Homer. There we go. Right, see, this tells you, Dante, hey, I'm getting somewhere now. But that tells you how great I am about poetry. Edgar Allan Poe, he did poetry too. Anyway, and once again, Edgar Allan Poe, descriptions, they're very easy to see. You can dive in, like you know about that raven. And the reason why it's so creepy and eerie, and I don't mean it's scary these days, but it was scary back then. It just has that emotion. And it's the word choices that he uses. It is poetry's basis on emotion, word choice, and descriptors. that really will help you in your own writing career or anything. The next thing I want to talk about is journalism. You've seen journalism. It's in blog posts, satire websites, regular websites, and you add on also newspapers. Yeah, those archaic papers that you read, newspapers. They're not archaic, I'm joking. I personally like newspapers myself. Anyway, journalism is a huge thing you can use for your own writing as well. So I want you to take a step back through time, use your time turner, your TARDIS, whatever you got going on, maybe your time machine, awesome seat thing that, H.G. Wells made. Doesn't matter. Go back in time during the 1800s, and what are you going to see in novelization? 1700s, 1800s. You're going to see letters and newspaper clippings and journalists talking about something. And that's what journalism is. It's journalists recording something. And that is why it's important in your own writing. If you look back to like Jane Austen, she shows a lot of writing of letters, and she shows you those letters in the stories. Dracula is almost written purely with writing letters, with letters. A more recent idea would be Stephen King's Carrie. That is mostly in newspaper or interviews. Again, something you would see in a newspaper. Well, I already said newspaper, but you get what I'm saying. Illuminae Files by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. God, so sorry if I got you guys' names wrong. Eek. Anyway, amazing trilogy, mind you. It's not even a style I prefer, though, because it's actually very difficult for me to read a novelization in just that kind of prose, where it's like files and interviews and everything else. But it's well done in an audiobook. Love the audiobook. Oh my god. But anyway, so to have an idea and a basis in journalism really helps you out in your own writing, because then you can add new things into your story. You can add newspaper clippings. You can add interviews. You can add emails. And all of this is from learning about journalism. But it's also about learning this next writing style I'm going to talk about, which is technical writing. Now, I actually really loved my technical writing class. It was great. Technical writing is pretty much your memos, your notes, your textbooks, your pamphlets, your emails. That's what encompasses technical writing. So, and proposals. A lot of proposals. What's great about technical writing is you have that background with the emails and the memos and texts, which you can use for your main writing project. But you can also use it in composing emails to future agents, future publishers, future bloggers who may want to read your book. Those kind of things. What I also love about technical writing is that it helped hone in my sentence structures and made it more exact. Because with technical writing, the focus is more on A, B, C, done. It's a clear cut, bop, bop, bop. So you got your subject, your fact, and your declaration, and you're done with it. So instead of saying Susie and Jill ran up the hill with raven hair dancing in the wind, It's Susie and Jill went up the hill. Done. It's very good for my outlines. It's very good for a fast draft if you just want to get something on paper. It's also very good for just those quick sentences where you want to have an exact emotion, or just like an exact emotion. And a good way of seeing that would be in thrillers. Those short clipped sentences. He stopped. Or he ran. Or it was out. Those things. I will explain more of that later on. I'm actually rereading, well, no, not rereading. I have never read this book before. I'm rereading King in general, but I'm reading It by Stephen King, and he does a great job with playing with those sentences. And I have a perfect example of it, which is just right in the beginning. But I'm not going to get into that for this episode, this video. It'll be later on when I talk about playing with sentences. But that's what's great about technical writing, is that you can play with sentences that way. It forces you to look at the bare minimum, but giving you the most information in that bare minimum. And I love that. It really challenges your mind. So there's that with technical writing. And the last one I'm going to talk about is screen and stage writing. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to take that in my classes. I had a long, crazy school system and everything where I changed my major right in like the middle of my college career. And instead of becoming an English teacher, I wanted to be a writer. I've always wanted to be a writer, but I just was just compelled to change it to writing instead of teaching. So I didn't get a chance to take the prerequisite classes to do screen and stage writing. And unfortunately for that, it's a lot to do with, the prerequisites had a lot to do with reading plays. I love reading plays. I know I mentioned William Shakespeare before. He's actually one of my favorite playwriters. There is 4 writing styles, writing types that will help your creative writing career, or just your creative writing in general. It will also work for creative nonfiction, because if you're going to be writing about a historical event, nothing is more boring than reading about one person did this one thing and that's why we have this. No, sometimes you kind of want a little flair and dazzle in there. And yeah, I know you're not going to know what a person's body language is, but by looking at their historical background and everything else, you could creatively make that happen. The fact is that creative writing fiction and writing nonfiction isn't just making up things. It's pulling things from real life, and that includes other types of writing. And I'll also be talking about actual school subjects that will go with your writing and why you can pull those things and help you develop more in your world. So for next week, I think I'm going to do something crazy. I have no idea what the next video is going to be about. What we're going to do right now is I'm going to close my eyes. I have like a little list on my notebook here. I'm going to close my eyes and we're going to just choose. And it is this one. And this one is Fiction Formulas and How to Shake Things Up. Oh, I like that. I can talk a lot about fiction formulas. There are also other fiction stuff that I want to talk about, like time travel, but that's later. So Fiction Formulas and How to Shake Things Up. I'll see you next week for that one. Bye, guys.